2, 1. Welcome back to Sports Unfiltered. You're listening live on WICR, the voice of Iona College. And today, for the third straight week, we have a guest in the second segment, and we have a man who is a lifelong Met fan, studies at the University of Binghamton, and he's been following the Mets managerial situation lately, following the Mets as a whole for a long, long time. And he's here to give us insight about everything he's heard, because he's been following it a lot more than Matt and I, that's for sure. So, first of all, what's up, Charlie? Welcome to the show.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
I heard you wanted to add something about our last segment. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so I was listening in, and you guys were talking about how the MLB is clearly using non-juice baseballs for the playoffs, which I have to agree with. And I think the biggest thing I want to point out is that you have guys like Verlander and Cole, who are undoubtedly the best pitchers in the American League right now, and they're on the same team. And I think that helps the Astros tremendously, because when you look at their whips, they're giving up. They both have a sub .9 whip, which is unheard of, and they're giving up less than 6 hits per inning each of them, or 6 hits per 9 innings each of them. And of those 6 hits, more than 20% of them are home runs. So when you take out the juice balls and the other teams can't hit home runs, they're just unhittable, and they give up no runs, as evident in the last 2 games that Verlander and Cole pitched.
Well, my question to that is Justin Verlander doesn't give up a lot of hits, but when he does give up hits, they seem to go far. So even without juice baseballs, do you think Verlander having to pitch in Yankee Stadium could hurt him?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Because if guys like Aaron Judge or Gary Sanchez, or even if Stanton comes back and plays, if they can get a hold of one, they could easily take one out of the park. Because those guys aren't hitting home runs because of juice balls. They're hitting home runs because they're strong with raw power. Especially
when Aaron Judge hitting home runs the opposite way a lot. Lefties coming up in the short porch. So Justin Verlander might struggle at Yankee Stadium. I knew Garrett Cole wasn't going to. And you're definitely not beating Garrett Cole Game 6. So the Yankees have to win every other game that Garrett Cole does not pitch.
Exactly.
All right, so moving on to breaking news. Joe Maddon signing with the Angels, a 3-year contract. He played the start of his career with the Angels. He managed their minor league teams. He was a bench coach. He actually spent the first 31 years of his career with the Angels. So is this a shock to you that he signed with the Angels? And how do you think he fits in with the organization?
Well, I think Joe Maddon is a perfect fit for them because they're a team that needs an identity. When you have a guy like Mike Trout and a guy like Shohei Ohtani, but nothing else to account for, you need a guy who can come in and just show the team what they got to do. Like, I don't think Brad Ausmus was cutting it, even though he only lasted 1 year. Mike Scioscia was one of the best managers they've had, and by the end, it seemed like he was just at his team, you know? But I think Joe Maddon can definitely go in there and take this team that seemed to play pretty well at the beginning of the season. At the end, they just seemed to die out. I think Joe Maddon can take this team and possibly win like 85 to 90 games this year if they can put together a pitching staff.
Especially if they're willing to open up the checkbook, which you know they are willing to do with Pujols and Ohtani. So, and with Trout, they re-signed him.
Well, I think the biggest problem the Angels have is that they open up the checkbook, but they don't do it on the right guys. You look at Pujols, they signed a 30-year-old at the time to a 10-year contract, which you know after 5 years he's going to be way downhill. And then they signed a guy like Josh Hamilton, who you can't see him falling off the way he did, but a guy with as many problems as he had, he just completely fell off the wagon and was useless for them.
I'm going to make a flex real quick to the Angels players because actually news came out over the last hour that baseball is interviewing Andrew Heaney, Trevor Cahill, and Matt Harvey over drug use, honestly, potentially in the clubhouse. We know what happened with Andrew Heaney. Wait. Tyler Skaggs, my bad. I don't know why I forgot that, but do you think it's possible that drugs could have been in the clubhouse besides Tyler Skaggs?
You know, these guys are professional athletes, and a lot of them tend to have just issues and whatnot. You saw that, like I said, with Josh Hamilton, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if drugs were a big thing in MLB clubhouses, that the MLB and teams just kind of scoot under the rug.
It's definitely not something you would know about.
Like a known thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to the Mets now. Mets, obviously, one of their top targets was Joe Maddon. They didn't get him. So I think the guy they would want the most right now is Joe Girardi, and Joe Girardi has shown interest in the position. Do you think Joe Girardi is more of a pipe dream, or is it actually a possibility he goes to the Mets?
Well, I don't know if you heard, but today he backed out of coaching the Team USA Olympic team before they played any games to qualify for the Olympics because he wants to get this MLB job. I've heard he's got interviews with Philly, with the Mets. I haven't heard anywhere else, but I think it could be a possibility. Brody wants to do something in the front office. He said that coming in, and he showed that he wasn't afraid to make moves. Whether or not those moves worked out, he wasn't afraid to make them. And I really think the Mets can land Joe Girardi. I don't know if you watched, but when Joe Girardi would call the Met games this year, he called a couple of them. I think with Fox, he was overly appreciative of all the talent the Mets had, and it was clear that he really liked everything that they were doing. Now, I don't know if he's just saying that because he wants a job in the MLB or if he truly believes the Mets can be a winning team, but you never know.
Well, there were a lot of teams that would definitely take Joe Girardi, so I think it might be a little bit of both.
I agree.
Yeah, so moving on, the guy they interviewed last week, actually the guy I think they are going to wind up with is Carlos Beltran. Obviously, he has ties to the organization. He's been working with the Yankees over the last couple of years. So, do you think Carlos Beltran would be a good fit for the Mets? And how do you think he'd be as a manager in general?
Up until about yesterday, I didn't really want him at all because I don't really know what he can bring to the table. Yeah, he's a guy who had a ton of talent as a hitter, but I don't really know what he's done with the Yankees, like in there, because he's been working with the GM, right? He's been under Cashman.
Yeah, but he's also been a special advisor in the minor leagues. So
I think having a guy like Carlos Beltran in your clubhouse would be great because this is a guy who, in 4 or 5 years, is going to be in the Hall of Fame consideration. And I think that a guy like him could really help out. The only thing is, this is just the Mets fan in me. I just don't want his Met reputation to be ruined if he ends up being a bad manager. And, like, his reputation is already kind of iffy with the whole not swinging at the 3-1.
As I brought up last week, yeah.
Curveball from Wainwright, but I think he can really do a lot with the Mets.
Every single Met fan you talk to will bring up that Carlos Beltran moment and cite it as a reason they don't want him. Managing this team has nothing to do with that moment and him as a player in general.
Oh, I agree. I just don't want it to ruin his Met reputation any more than that little speck.
Yeah, I could see that. Another name that came up, Eduardo Perez. Aaron Boone actually endorsed him, saying he'd be a great fit for the job, but I don't know much about him at all, and I don't know if Met fans do, so what is your opinion on him?
Well, I actually looked him up today because I also saw the news that the Mets are interviewing him, and I gotta say, I like the guy on MLB when he's announcing games, and it seems like he really knows what he's talking about. I did some digging. He started a baseball league in Puerto Rico after their whole winter league ended a few years ago, or maybe a little more than a few years ago now. But the first year there, he was a manager. He won Manager of the Year there. I know it's just the Puerto Rican league, but it does say a lot when he can start a league and end up winning Manager of the Year. And this is a guy who's the son of Tony Perez, who's a Hall of Famer, so clearly he has some knowledge of baseball and how it works. And I think it'd be interesting to see what he could do as a manager.
I honestly didn't know that. You just gave me some pretty good information there. He's the son of Tony Perez?
Yeah.
Wow. So maybe he is a good fit. He has baseball in his blood, so we shall see. Mm-hmm. Tony Perez, obviously a Hall of Famer.
Hitting coach in Miami, I want to say under Ozzie Guillen when they first became the Miami Marlins for a little bit.
So I don't think he gets the job, but maybe he's at least worth interviewing, which they have. So better than I first thought. All right, so moving on to your actual team, the Mets. Do you think they would have made the playoffs if they fired Mickey Callaway earlier, maybe in the middle of the season? Or did he really not have a lot to do with it? They made the run at the end of the season anyway, so maybe they would have made it earlier if he was gone, but...
I honestly think that the Mets had as many wins as they did because of Mickey Callaway. There were rumors in the beginning of the season when the Mets weren't doing as well as they should have been doing that Mickey was on the hot seat, and there were also rumors that he wasn't getting fired because the Mets players were the ones that were vouching for him and really wanted him there. So if those rumors are true, I honestly believe that he's the reason the Mets ended up with as many wins as they did, because I think the team rallied around him because you saw guys like J.D. Davis, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Jacob deGrom, all these guys just play their hearts out down the end. Even when it looked like they weren't going to make the playoffs, they still played as hard as they could for their manager.
So would you have actually kept him, or you agree firing him was the right move?
In the beginning of the season, and last season too, I wanted him fired, but I got to say, if the players were playing for him, then I think keeping him would have been the right move. But Brody's a new GM, and I think that Brody wants to bring in his guy, so it was inevitable once they hired Brody that they were going to fire Mickey Callaway.
What I was going to ask you next is if you thought Mickey Callaway or the bullpen was more of a problem, but based on what you just said, you definitely think the bullpen was more of a problem, and if the bullpen wasn't as bad as they were, they probably would have made the playoffs.
I mean, if you look at the stats, there was a point in June, I think, or maybe even later than June. If they would have just blown, I think, 75% of the saves that they actually blew, they were a playoff team. So just let that number sink in. If they would have blown 3 out of the 4 saves that they blew, so for every 4 they blew, if it was only 3, they're a playoff team. That's a lot of blown.
So based on your logic, besides Edwin Diaz, whose fault is it that they didn't make the playoffs? Because it's basically all on Edwin Diaz, because Seth Lugo had a great year. Familia settled down during their win streak at the end of the year. So Edwin Diaz, the only guy who didn't get himself going and get himself together late in the year.
Edwin Diaz is definitely the biggest problem, but you can't look past Familia with, I believe, over a 6 ERA for a large part of the season. That's a lot.
I agree with you there, but when the win streak started and they could have made the playoffs, Familia was actually a pretty big part of it. He got really good towards the end of the year.
Yeah, no, Edwin Diaz is definitely the worst part of it, though, because this is a guy who last season at, I think, 23 years old, had 57 saves, 58 saves, and then he comes in this season, blows like 10, gives up like 15 or 16 ninth-inning home runs, which is a major league record. It's just, you can't do that. And there were talks all season about how he was pitching last year with a bone spur in his elbow, and the Mets are going to have to limit that this year. And it seemed like they just didn't.
I'm going to ask you a couple more questions here. The first one is, what prospects do you see in this system that can make an impact as soon as next year? And also, who would you like to see the Mets go after in free agency?
Well, as for prospects, I really don't like a lot of them. They have that shortstop. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Andres Jimenez.
He's supposed to be all right. Who?
Andres Jimenez?
Yeah, Andres Jimenez. But the problem is they have him at Rosario. So it seems like they do this all the time, where their top prospects are guys that they have filled at MLB positions. Like,
yeah, but we've seen this with other teams, and they're able to move around positions if they have to.
Third, David Wright's still there.
We've seen this with
all the time.
We've seen this with other teams where you're able to move around prospects if you have to, as far as where the position goes. Mm-hmm. So, if need be, Jimenez could play somewhere else in the field.
Yeah, I would imagine so, but the problem is where? Because the Mets have so many guys right now who you can't move around. You have Cano at second, but it should be McNeil at second. So you have McNeil and Davis in the outfield with Conforto, but you also have Nimmo in the outfield. And then at third base, they're going to have Jed Lowry.
A guy we were talking about last segment, Anthony Rendon. Can you see the Mets making a run at him?
I would love for the Mets to sign Anthony Rendon. I just don't think they will. He's going to cost way too much money. He's going to get by far the largest free agent contract this year, and he deserves it. But yeah. I think the problem is the Mets don't want to spend money. Brody Van Wagenen signed his client, Jed Lowry, last year. Didn't get a single hit this year, but he signed him, and he's going to be starting third baseman next year. I truly believe that.
And I honestly think he goes back to Washington, if I had to guess, because the Nationals are not going to let another superstar leave.
Well, he already turned down a 7-year, $200-something million contract.
I get that, but this run in the playoffs definitely is going to change his mind. I think, how could you want to leave a team that's doing this?
I think it's the other way. I think that this playoffs is just going to, Anthony Rendon is just going to see the dollar signs, and he's going to get some team, I don't know what team, but some team is going to offer him a ridiculous contract. And I think it's going to be the Nationals, because they didn't open the checkbook to Bryce Harper. They're going to open it to Anthony Rendon, especially since they made the World Series. And this is the same thing, like I said last segment, that we saw with Daniel Murphy a couple years ago, where his playoffs basically took him out of Citi Field. If he didn't do that in the playoffs, Daniel Murphy was never leaving the Mets. Oh, no. I mean, Daniel Murphy before that playoffs was a 280 hitter with like maybe 15 home run power a season, a good 2-hitter, but nothing bad, nothing great. And then he has that playoffs, and he's the best second baseman in baseball at the time. So, yeah. Yeah. All right, last question I'm going to ask you, Charlie, and it's the $1 million question here. Is Pete Alonso a fraud? Did the juiced baseballs cause him to break Aaron Judge's rookie home run record? And you know the answer, so don't be biased. I think the juiced baseballs definitely help. But when you look at a guy like Alonso, he's not a guy who's hitting 35 home runs because he's got like Ketel Marte power where he's just thinking them over the wall. This is a guy with pure raw strength. But there were a couple home runs during the season where he hit line drives that shouldn't have got out if the ball wasn't juiced. Number 52, I believe, was a line drive that just barely hit the wall. But I think the juice balls definitely help, but I still think that without the juice balls, he could hit like 40, 45 home runs. All right, I'm going to let you go, Charlie. Thanks for coming on. Definitely some great insight on the candidates for the Mets, and
I hope your team does better. I mean, I have no problem with them, even though I'm a Yankee fan.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Really enjoyed it.
All right, thanks, Charlie. I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, bye.
All right, so Matt, what do you think of all that? Do you think that the Mets are going to hire the right guy, or do you not trust Brody at all?
I don't know. I think I trust in have a lot of trust in Carlos Beltran to actually put some major factor into the team. I just don't know how he actually fits. I mean, he had a great career aside from the the speculations in the Mets franchise, but still, it's a toss up for me, honestly. I don't know. I would love to see him excel with the Mets, but I can't really see too much out of it.
I think he's the perfect fit, honestly. I think he'd do a great job as the manager. I think he'd resonate with the Dominican and Puerto Rican players in the clubhouse in a way that Mickey Callaway just couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have guys like Familia, and you have guys like Ahmed Rosario, who was with Jose Reyes, a really bad influence for many years, you need someone to come in and get these guys straight. And Carlos Beltran is the correct guy to do it.
You think he's also gonna have a chance to fix the bullpen as well? I mean, again, I know it might be also the bullpen's fault this season having with the Mets were as they were right now this season.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about Carlos Beltran like he's already signed, because he's not. And there's a lot of good candidates out there. Mm-hmm. But if he gets the job, he will definitely have a say in who is in the new bullpen next year. And it might be guys who he played with, because he only retired about 4 or 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's been gone for that long. He's a name that basically all modern baseball fans know. So it's a good hiring when it comes to that. All right, so we are going to do something now that you've been waiting for since the show came back on the air. The NBA, your favorite sport, one where I honestly don't know anything about it anymore. Haven't followed this sport the whole entire summer. When the season starts, I'll get the info for you guys. I'll talk about it on the radio. But for now, I'm going to shift this over to Matt, and he's going to give his NBA preview for the year.
All right. So coming in, welcome guys to Gaels Sport, and this is on the Gaels Sports Center newsfeed. We're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to talk about a few things here. First of all, is going to be the top-ranked players in the NBA coming up to this season. There's been a lot of controversy and talking about who's going to be the main factor coming up this season. Players moving left and right, and now with all these quote unquote duos in a lot of these teams now. You just wondering the fact that you still have the East, they have the Western Conference, who's been absolutely stacking up this past free agency and off season, and now you have like the Western Conference being completely stacked from 1 through 17, like almost like the top 7 teams in the league so far. So most from what I've seen so far, and this is gonna be my top 10 so far. Kevin Durant, number 10. Nikola Jokic, number 9. 8, James Harden. Joel Embiid, number 7. 6, Paul George. Anthony Davis, number 6. 5, Steph Curry. Giannis. Actually, no. I put Giannis Antetokounmpo at number 2, and number 3. 2, LeBron James, and number 1, the reigning champion this season, now on the Los Angeles Clippers, Kawhi Leonard. Now, the only reason why I do not have Russell, and if anybody knows that I do not have Russell Westbrook in my top 10, is because I think he's very, very overrated. In terms of look at the stat lines that he has been doing, that has put up last season. Right around 40 something, right around 41 to 42% from the field and 28% from downtown. That's not really a good stat line for him. Obviously, he's still averaging like the triple double that he did last season, averaging over 20 points a game, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists.
Well, Matt, let me ask you a question there. Russell Westbrook and James Harden are obviously 2 really ball dominant players. How do you think the 2 of them teaming up will work?
I just don't know, because that's going to be the main factor coming up this season. They could be really good with each other. And they can go back to the days where they were both back in OKC together. But obviously, I think James Harden was coming off the bench that time, and Dabo Cephalosha was in the starting rotation because of his defense. But if you put James Harden and Russell Westbrook in the starting lineup, I just don't know where the scoring is going to come through. I mean, you're going to have both. You're going to have the athleticism and strong offense coming off of Russell Westbrook, and then the shooting and then the great offensive mechanics and shooting from James Harden. So there may be a balance there, but the only thing is that, again, as you mentioned, ball dominant players both wanting the ball, especially in the clutch. So I just see that with that kind of thing. I don't think they're gonna be like they're gonna maybe a playoff team, maybe 6 or 7 seed at most. But they're not gonna go far with this, especially with the team what they have right now. Maybe Aaron Gordon even goes off this
Well,
season.
can it at least work better than teaming up with Chris Paul? Because that was a disaster.
Yeah, obviously, but if Chris Paul wasn't really but Chris Paul wasn't a dominant point guard. There was a ball dominant point guard. Yeah, as we know in years past, and I don't think he's going to be definitely a great Hall of Fame pick. Not first ballot, but I think he's going to be definitely a Hall of Fame
My
pick.
favorite player ever.
But Chris Paul was a pass first point guard. Now you have a ball dominant point guard coming into the game with Russell Westbrook, and I just don't know how that's gonna how that makes the team even better with the way the Houston franchise has been so far, and under the coaching of Mike D'Antoni. So it's gonna be a toss up for me. That's why I'm not gonna. That's why this season is gonna be iffy for Houston this season.
All right. Last question I have for you about the NBA. Who do you think is the best team in Los Angeles?
Ooh, man.
I know it's a tough question
because you have one of the best two of the best defensive small forwards in the game of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and you had the reigning champion of Kawhi Leonard also. But also you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Man, that's just a tough toss up for me. I see for right now, with the way teams are right now, I see Los Angeles the Lakers take the pick.
Wow,
because the way LeBron James has picked up the way he signed all these veteran players. I think that's going to be the main factor. How much the veteran presence is going to come up with, and the amount of defense that he has picked up in the offseason with Avery Bradley, Dwight Howard also coming into the mix. Now I'm coming back to the Lakers show. I think he's going to have a great offensive game, defensive and offensive game. And aside from years past what he had with the Lakers, obviously being with Kobe Bryant and Steve Nash, that team was supposed to be a very good team. And then with the controversy and just the bad team chemistry, I think now with the new team for Dwight Howard is going to be a very good offensive set. Now they have like a decent amount of a bench that he can actually make it to the playoffs. They're going to definitely be a playoff team, no doubt, but it's just a matter of where they're going to be stacked up coming up to the season. I think that's where it's going to be at. Also.
I'll actually ask you one more question. The West is obviously stacked, and Golden State has made the finals 3 years in a row, obviously losing Kevin Durant, even though the Nets won't have him this year anyway. What do you see out of the Golden State Warriors this year? They also lost Sean Livingston, Andre Iguodala, I believe.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that's a good question because you had one of two of your best bench players in Iguodala and Livingston now retired. Livingston retiring for this season, and I don't know where Iggy's gonna go. Now that the Grizzlies are not going to take him this season,
and people don't even realize how important Iggy was to the Golden State Warriors.
Absolutely,
he was the heart and soul of that team. Besides Curry,
yeah, definitely, because obviously with KD going down, Klay Thompson having that horrific
Achilles
injury, and still making 2 free throws after coming off of that, which is, by the way, really like basically Kobe-esque, honestly. But I think Golden State still makes the playoffs this season. I say they kind of probably be like a fifth to sixth seed. This Curry is going to definitely go off this season. Probably have another MVP type season, averaging over 27 to 30 points a game. D'Lo is still going to be D'Lo, even though he's not going to be like the number one option on the offense that he was last season with the Brooklyn Nets. He's still going to be a definite role. He's going to have the shooting opportunities that he's going to have this season. I think Willie Cauley-Stein is going to have a better role for the Golden State Warriors this season. Klay Thompson's going to come back full and healthy after having that Achilles injury. So I don't think there's going to be a big huge drop off for the Warriors. And you also have your great pickup in the draft of Jordan Poole, who was really stellar in the NCAA tournament, and obviously hitting that game winner to move on in the NCAA tournament for Michigan. So in all retrospect, I think Golden State's going to be fine this season coming up. One more thing I'm going to talk about real quick before we go to break. The Iona men's basketball team coming up in full swing once again. They're gonna have obviously Ricky McGill coming off a great 4-year career, winning all four of winning MAC championship in all 4 years of his career. Who's going to be the main point guard for this season? We don't know. Obviously, we're still waiting on Isaiah Washington, aka Jellyfam, to actually make his run for the season. Obviously, he did transfer here, but he's trying to appeal for the NCAA rules to actually play for this season. Asante Gist is still going to be shooting lights out. Tawan Ag being absolutely in a beast in the paint, and also stretching the floor for the team. You still got guys like Colton, and also the guys that they picked up from the off season as well. So it's gonna be a great season. I think it's still gonna be a great season. The 4-time MAC championships coming into this season with a lot of momentum. Coach Klus is going to definitely have a lot up his sleeve coming up into the season. First game coming up, it will be against the LaSalle Explorers on November 9th. It'll be in Philadelphia, but the first game here in New Rochelle will be against Ohio on November 13th on Wednesday on the newly revamped Heinz Athletic Center. I'm going to be very excited to not only...
I think everybody here is. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I saw pictures of it. Like, people are really excited for that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's going to be a great atmosphere to be in. Gaels being back in their new home floor coming up in the season.
All right, so this is where we usually go to break, but considering there's not much time left, we're going to try to fit as much as we can in the next 3 minutes before we go off the air. So, Matt, I'm going to say something. You're going to tell me what you think of it, and then I'll give my thought real quick.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Jets with Sam Darnold. How'd they look?
I think they do great against them, against the Cowboys, because with what he's done this season, with what he's done so far, he had a really good game, 23 for 32, over 300 yards. Picking up 2 touchdowns. He did have that interception, but I think he really picked well. The Jets defense coming up clutch as well.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott didn't really do too much either.
And the offensive line, far from fantastic, but they did much, much better. Sam Darnold looked fantastic. Robbie Anderson and Jamison Crowder all of a sudden back from the dead. They both played great. If the Jets play like this and Sam Darnold shows he is the quarterback that everyone thinks he is, because week 1 against the Bills, he didn't. And then we didn't see him for 4 weeks after that. But now with Darnold back, I might be crazy, but I think the Jets go Monday night in MetLife and knock off the Patriots. And I think they end this season 8-8.
Man, that's going to be a very good time.
The Cowboys are struggling right now, but that was a very big win for the Jets, and they looked fantastic doing it. Yes, they almost blew it at the end of the game, trying to give it away, but that offense looked great early in the game, and I really think the Patriots don't know what's coming.
I think what the main factor is, you have Le'Veon Bell and Demaryius Thomas. I think if Demaryius Thomas goes off this season, and then Robbie Anderson, them two combined, I think it's going to be a great offensive set.
Stat-wise, it might not show up, but that was Demaryius Thomas's best game in 2 years. He was really, really good directing traffic out there. It opened things up for Crowder and Robbie. And like I said, the Jets really could knock off the Patriots. Team that didn't knock off the Patriots, the Giants, Daniel Jones struggled, but we're not even going to get into that much. Islanders calling up top prospect Oliver Wahlstrom because of injuries to Case Zizekas and Jordan Eberle. He looked like he fit right off the bat, and he's probably going to get an extended look now going on the road trip. Friday in Winnipeg will be Oliver Wahlstrom's second game, most likely in the lineup. Maybe he plays with Matt Barzell. He played with Matt Barzell late in the game, in Game 6, and I could see him scoring his first goal against a Winnipeg team who does not play any defense. Islanders now 3-3. They had an amazing win against the St. Louis Blues in Game 6. They were down 2-0 with 5 minutes left. I admittedly turned the game off, but the Islanders came back. Brock Nelson scored to make it 2-1. Matt Barzell tried to pass to Anders Lee in front to tie it with 19 seconds left. Instead, it hit the stick of Alex Steen, went into the net, tied it 2-2 with 19 seconds left. Game went to overtime. Devin Tays from Matt Barzell hit the overtime winner. If they play like that, if they use that momentum, the Islanders are going to be what they were last year. It's way too early to panic if you're an Islander fan. And as far as the Rangers go, Kapokako scored his first goal against the Edmonton Oilers on a breakaway. Looked really good doing it. No need to worry about him. A lot of people were crazy the first 2 games. Oh, what's wrong with this guy? If you should be worried if you're a Devil fan, not a Ranger fan. The Rangers not supposed to be great this year, but they've looked excellent so far.
Yeah, but they did struggle against the Oilers in that last game.
But the Oilers only have 1 loss this year. They've looked fantastic so far, and Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, probably the best pairing in hockey. They just don't have much after it. James Neal having a dominant resurgence though for that team, as we talked about last year.
Yeah, so
Pavel Buchnevich, Artemi Panarin, Mika Zibanejad. That top line for the Rangers has been incredible. Mika Zibanejad already with a 4-point game this year.
Mhm.
So the Rangers, if they play like that, they're not a playoff team, but they are going to look solid the rest of the season. Last thing I want to bring up before we go is a story I heard about DeAndre Hopkins. They're going to be showing it on the ESPN Cover magazine, a brand new thing, also an ESPN 30 for 30, probably coming out about this. It's about DeAndre Hopkins' mother, who sadly, when he was a kid, a woman who was on drugs threw acid in his mother's face, and his mother lost her vision.
Whoa.
So she has never been able to see her son, DeAndre Hopkins, play football, but they use football as a bond between the two of them. So just a great story there to watch. DeAndre Hopkins does everything for his mother, and it made me really gain a lot of respect for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, I think that's a great story too, because like, family goes through a lot of stuff, especially even with athletes. Where DeAndre Hopkins' career is having right now, he's having like has a great stellar career.
Yeah.
So I think with that and coming with the story, I think he just definitely has to do it for his mother, honestly.
And this will be the second ESPN cover story. The first was on Texas quarterback Sam Ehlinger. Sam Ehlinger lost his father when he was a kid. His father was a major Texas Longhorn fan, and everything Ehlinger's done since then has been to go to Texas, to be the quarterback of Texas, and do it all for his father. So that's going to do it for this week's edition of Sports Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jake Demisa.
I'm Matthew George.
And we are signing off.